Today's Q&A is about herbs, and the question is it true that all herbs are kosher? And the answer is that it's almost impossible to find an herb which is inherently non-kosher, but nonetheless, there's still some kashrus issues to consider when a person wants to use an herb. The most common one is insect infestation, which is a concern, a serious concern for fresh or frozen herbs. Insects are attracted to the really good smell of the herb, and therefore it has to be washed and checked before use to make sure there's no bugs in them. How to do that is beyond the scope of this kind of a discussion, but just to put it out there that there is such a requirement. At the same time, the din is that if an herb has been around for 12 months, any insects that might have been there are dried out to the point that they're, in the way the place can call it, like dust, ka'afar ba'alma, and they're not usher anymore. Now, most people are not going to hold on to the herbs for 12 months, but the place can say that if an herb is thoroughly dried in an oven, that has the same effect as waiting for 12 months. And that's, in fact, the kind of herbs that come, dried herbs that are sold in jars that many people have in their pantries are exactly that. And therefore, those don't have a concern of insects, but the fresh and the frozen ones do. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that Eretz Yisrael is a large exporter of herbs. And just like anything else from Eretz Yisrael, you can only use them after you separate Truma Meiser and making sure they're not from Shemitah. Okay, now, if you grind your own herbs and spices, it's worth keeping in mind that the grinder requires tefillah, and that's for a regular, so to speak, permanent, regular grinder that a person could buy. But most disposable grinders are made completely from plastic and therefore don't require tefillah on them. Okay, what happens if you have a disposable grinder that's made of metal, or the container, the grinding mechanism itself is made of metal, or the container is made of glass? Do you have to empty it and tovel it before you use it the first time? So most poskim are of the opinion that you don't have to do that. But if you have one of those, or you're thinking about buying one of those, you should speak to your rabbi for more clear direction on that issue. Okay, and the last thing is that herbs and spices that we buy in the stores are not cooked before they come to your house. And the Shulchan Aruch says that therefore on Shabbos you can't put them into a hot kli rishon. A kli rishon means the original the original pot in which food was cooked, and it's a kli rishon even if it's off the fire. So if a pot of soup comes off the fire, is off the fire, and it's still in the original pot that the soup cooked in, you're not allowed to put herbs and spices into that. You can't put them into a kli sheni. So if the soup is moved into your bowl, then that's okay, because that's not the original kli, the original pot that it was cooked in, and that's okay. Now, in this distinction between a kli rishon and a kli sheni, the Mishnah Berurah says that you shouldn't put hot spices onto a hot potato kugel or something else that's solid, even if it comes out of the kli rishon, because some are of the opinion that when something is solid, it retains its heat. It's called a davar gush. It holds onto its heat even and is considered a kli rishon even after it transfers from the original pot or pan that it was made in. Now, all these couple of things that I just mentioned about Shabbos for spices, those are for spices and herbs. The halachas, some of these halachas are stricter for salt than for other things, and many spice blends include salt in them. So for those, you'd have to take a stricter stand on several of these issues that I just mentioned.